In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where civilizations rise and fall like distant stars, there exists a universal truth that every species learns. Never underestimate the quiet ones. The Galactic Council had made this mistake exactly once. They looked at humanity's bulky, primitive-looking armor and laughed. They called it overkill, paranoid engineering, and typical human excess. What they didn't realize was that humans had learned a lesson the hard way. A lesson written in blood across 1,000 battlefields on a small blue planet where everything, absolutely everything, had tried to kill them for millions of years. When you come from a world where the weather can flash freeze you in minutes, where microscopic organisms wage chemical warfare in your bloodstream, and where your own gravity tries to crush you every second of every day, you don't just build armor. You build a second skin that can walk through hell itself. The Council was about to learn why humans called their battle suits life insurance rather than just armor. And why, when push came to shove, the species that had once been mocked for their excessive paranoia would be the last ones standing when the universe itself seemed to turn hostile. Because sometimes excessive is exactly what you need to survive. Commander Sarah Chun stood motionless in the armor testing chamber, her breathing steady despite the weight of nearly 200 pounds of advanced composite plating surrounding her body. The Terran military's latest Mark 7 combat suit made her look like a walking tank, all angular plates and redundant systems that seemed to scream overkill to anyone who bothered to look closely. Through the chamber's transparent walls, she could see the assembled delegation from the Galactic Defense Council. Representatives from 12 different species had gathered on Station Kepler to witness humanity's formal presentation of their military equipment standards. It was supposed to be a routine evaluation, a checkbox exercise before Earth could fully integrate its forces with the galaxy's established military framework. The Zephyrian representative, Ambassador Kethtar, gestured with one of his 4 arms toward the viewing window. His crystalline features caught the light as he spoke, his translator rendering his melodious tones into crisp standard galactic. Observe the excessive bulk of the human design. My people have been traversing the stars for 3 millennia, and I have never seen such crude over-engineering. Beside him, the hegemony delegate nodded agreement. General Vexoth was a veteran of 17 interstellar conflicts, his gray hide marked with honorable scars from battles across the spiral arm. The power requirements alone must be astronomical. How does such a primitive species expect to maintain supply lines with equipment that inefficient? Dr. Yila from the Celestial Concordat adjusted her gossamer wings and peered through her multiple optical sensors. The redundancy is remarkable in its wastefulness. 3 separate life support systems, 5 layers of reactive armor plating. It's as if they expect to fight in the vacuum of space, underwater, and in a radiation storm simultaneously. Perhaps, chuckled Ambassador Mordek from the Trade Federation, his segmented carapace clicking with amusement. Their homeworld is so hostile that such paranoid designs are simply cultural artifacts. Many primitive worlds produce overly defensive species. Commander Chun heard every word through her suit's external audio sensors. The Mark 7 was designed to be aware of everything in a 300-meter radius, from electromagnetic signatures to atmospheric chemical composition to overheard conversations in 14 different languages. She remained silent, following protocol. The demonstration would speak for itself. Colonel James Harrison, Earth's military liaison, stood beside the viewing window with practiced diplomatic patience. He had expected this reaction. Every human military designer had anticipated the mockery from their galactic neighbors. After all, When you compared human armor to the elegant, streamlined combat gear of other species, it did look like someone had strapped a bunker to a person's back. The ethereal collective's representative floated nearby, her energy-based form shimmering with what might have been disdain. In our civilization, we have transcended the need for such crude physical protection. Our warriors merge consciousness with pure energy constructs. This human design represents such a backwards approach to combat evolution. The weight distribution alone violates 3 separate efficiency protocols, added the mechanical hegemony's android delegate, processing calculations with visible light patterns across his metallic skull. A warrior encumbered by such mass cannot achieve optimal combat mobility. It is mathematics. General Martinez, head of Earth's Galactic Integration Program, stepped forward with a slight smile. Distinguished delegates, I appreciate your observations about our equipment design philosophy. However, I believe a practical demonstration might provide better context than theoretical discussion. He activated his communicator. Commander Chun, please proceed with test protocol Alpha. Sarah nodded inside her helmet, though the gesture was invisible beneath the armor's bulk. The chamber around her began to shift as automated systems adjusted the environment. What had been a sterile testing room transformed into something resembling the surface of a hostile moon. Low gravity, no atmosphere, and radiation levels that would sterilize most organic life forms in minutes. Observe, Colonel Harrison said as displays throughout the viewing area lit up with telemetry data. Current chamber conditions: hard vacuum, cosmic radiation at 14 times galactic standard, temperature of -200°C. The assembled aliens watched with varying degrees of attention. Most seemed bored, expecting a routine demonstration of basic environmental protection. After all, every spacefaring species had developed adequate survival gear for vacuum operations. Commander Chun began to move through a series of combat maneuvers, her massive armor somehow flowing through complex acrobatic sequences despite its apparent bulk. She executed rolling dodges, precision shooting stances, and climbing exercises on suddenly appearing obstacle formations. The armor's servo-assisted joints moved with mechanical precision, amplifying her natural strength and speed rather than hindering them. Interesting mobility for such a cumbersome design, General Vexoth admitted grudgingly. But I noticed the power consumption is enormous. How long can such systems operate without resupply? 72 hours of continuous combat operations, General Martinez replied. 2 weeks of standard patrol activity. 6 months in hibernation mode with full life support. Several delegates exchanged glances. Those numbers were significantly higher than most civilizations consider practical. The general consensus among galactic military doctrine was that battles were decided quickly, usually within hours. Equipment designed for extended operation was considered wasteful of resources. Dr. Yila's sensors focused more intently on the armored figure. The power source appears remarkably stable. What technology provides such extended operation? Classified, Colonel Harrison said pleasantly. Though I can mention it involves controlled nuclear fusion at the molecular level, combined with kinetic energy recapture systems and solar absorption panels integrated into the armor plating. The mechanical hegemony delegate's optical array brightened with what passed for surprise among his kind. Fusion power in a portable unit, the radiation shielding requirements alone are incorporated into the armor's standard protection systems, General Martinez finished. The Mark 7 is designed to operate in any environment where a human might need to fight or survive. This includes nuclear battlefields, biological warfare zones, and stellar radiation events. Ambassador Kethtar's crystalline features shifted color slightly, indicating skepticism among his people. Surely such claims are exaggerated for diplomatic effect. No single equipment system could address such varied threat environments. Commander Chun, General Martinez spoke into his communicator again. Please proceed with test protocol beta. The chamber's environment shifted again. This time, the temperature spiked to nearly 400 degrees Celsius while acidic vapor began flooding the space. Electromagnetic pulse generators activated, sending waves of disrupting energy through the testing area. Simultaneously, targeted radiation beams and chemical weapons dispersed throughout the chamber. Every alien in the viewing area took an involuntary step backward. The conditions inside the testing chamber would kill most known life forms within seconds, even with standard protective equipment. Yet Commander Chun continued her movements as if nothing had changed. Current conditions, Colonel Harrison read from his displays, simulate combat on a planet undergoing volcanic resurfacing, chemical warfare bombardment, electromagnetic attack, and nuclear fallout simultaneously. The assembled delegates stared in stunned silence as the armored human performed increasingly complex combat maneuvers. She fired weapons with pinpoint accuracy, scaled artificial cliff faces, and even demonstrated hand-to-hand combat techniques against mechanical opponents that materialized from the chamber's walls. The armor's reactive plating is adapting to each threat in real time. Dr. Yila observed, her sensors working frantically to track the multiple protective systems engaging across the armor surface. Thermal regulation, chemical neutralization, electromagnetic shielding, radiation absorption. How many defensive systems are integrated into this design? We stopped counting at 47 primary systems, General Martinez said casually, each with multiple backup and redundancy protocols. General Vexoff leaned forward, his scarred hands pressed against the viewing window. This is not possible. No military force in the galaxy maintains equipment with such capabilities. The manufacturing cost alone would bankrupt most planetary economies. Humans have a saying, Colonel Harrison replied. It's better to have something and not need it than to need something and not have it. We call it being prepared. The ethereal collective representative pulsed with what her species expressed as confusion. But such extensive preparation implies you expect to encounter all possible threats simultaneously. What manner of conflicts has your species experienced to develop such paranoid engineering? Sarah Chan paused in her demonstration to consider the question that came through her comm system. Through her armor's external sensors, she could see the alien delegates clearly, their various forms of surprise and confusion evident even across species lines. None of them understood what they were really looking at. They saw excessive armor. Humans saw life insurance. They saw wasteful overengineering. Humans saw hard-earned lessons written in the blood of their ancestors. They saw primitive paranoia. Humans saw the wisdom of a species that had fought its way to the top of the most hostile food chain in the known galaxy. General, she spoke through her external speakers, her voice carrying clearly into the observation area. Permission to answer the delegate's question? Granted, Commander. Sarah turned to face the viewing window directly, her massive armored form somehow managing to convey dignity despite its bulk. Honored representatives, my homeworld is called Earth. On Earth, we have creatures so small you cannot see them that can kill you in days. We have weather patterns that can freeze you solid in minutes or cook you alive in seconds. We have predators that can bite through steel, plants that dissolve flesh with acidic sap, and insects whose venom causes paralysis and death. She gestured to her armor with one massive gauntlet hand. This suit is not excessive by human standards. It is barely adequate for some neighborhoods in our major cities. We do not design for theoretical threats, honored delegates. We design for the assumption that everything in the universe is actively trying to kill us, because on our world, that assumption has kept our species alive for millions of years. The chamber fell silent, except for the hum of environmental systems. The alien delegates stared at the armored human with a new understanding beginning to dawn in their various forms of consciousness. Ambassador Kethtar was the first to speak. Your homeworld produced a warrior species. No, sir, Sarah replied respectfully. Our homeworld produced a survivor species. We learned to fight because everything else left us no choice. She resumed her demonstration, but the atmosphere in the observation deck had changed entirely. The mockery was gone, replaced by a growing awareness that they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just advanced technology, but technology born from evolutionary necessity. Dr. Yila's sensors detected microfractures appearing in the chamber's specialized testing materials as Commander Chen's demonstration continued. The armor is actually improving the human's physical capabilities beyond organic limitations. Amplification factor varies by situation, Colonel Harrison confirmed. Strength multiplication ranges from 3 to 12 times baseline human capability, depending on operational requirements. Speed enhancement provides burst capabilities exceeding most galactic species' natural movement. The mechanical hegemony delegate processed this information with rapid light pattern calculations. Enhancement factor 12 would allow a single human to match the physical strength of a hegemony assault trooper. Yes, General Martinez nodded. Though our assault troopers wear different armor that provides significantly higher enhancement levels. Several delegates exchanged alarmed glances. The implication was clear. If this was human standard equipment, what did their specialized military hardware look like? Ambassador Mordex Carapace clicked nervously. General, may I inquire about the combat doctrine that necessitates such individual warrior enhancement? Human military philosophy is based on individual initiative and adaptability, the general explained. Each soldier is trained and equipped to operate independently for extended periods in hostile territory. We assume that supply lines will be cut, communications will fail, and reinforcements will not arrive. That is a remarkably pessimistic operational framework, General Vexoth observed. We call it realistic. Sarah's voice came from the chamber as she completed a series of combat roles that would have been impossible for an unarmored human. On Earth, optimists don't survive long enough to reproduce. The demonstration continued for another hour, with the chamber environment cycling through increasingly extreme conditions. Each test revealed new capabilities built into the armor system: self-repair functions, adaptive camouflage, integrated medical support, emergency spaceflight capability, and dozens of other features that seemed to anticipate every possible threat scenario. By the end of the testing period, the assembled delegates had fallen silent. The mockery and condescension that had marked the beginning of the demonstration had been replaced by a profound recognition that they were witnessing something unprecedented. As Commander Chun powered down the test chamber and began the decontamination sequence, Ambassador Kethtar turned to his fellow delegates with crystalline features that had shifted to deep blue, a sign of serious contemplation among his people. I believe, he said quietly, we may have misunderstood the nature of humanity's contribution to galactic defense. General Vexoth nodded grimly, his scarred hands clasped behind his back. Indeed, if this is their standard equipment, I shudder to think what their specialized forces might field. Dr. Yila's wings fluttered with agitation. The implications for existing military doctrine are staggering. If individual soldiers can operate with such independence and capability, she left the thought unfinished, but everyone present understood. The entire galactic approach to warfare was based on the assumption that individual warriors were fragile, requiring constant support and coordination. Humanity had apparently approached the problem from the opposite direction. Make each warrior capable of independent operation in any environment against any threat. As the delegates filed out of the observation area, their earlier amusement had transformed into something approaching respectful concern. They had come expecting to evaluate primitive equipment from a recently contacted species. Instead, they had witnessed a demonstration that challenged every assumption about military technology and doctrine that had dominated galactic civilization for millennia. Commander Sarah Chun finished her post-demonstration equipment check and removed her helmet in the privacy of the chamber. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the armor's climate control, but her expression was satisfied. She had seen the change in the observers' attitudes. The laughter had stopped. The condescension had evaporated. In its place was the beginning of understanding that humanity brought something unique to the galactic community, something that might prove invaluable when the universe reminded everyone just how hostile a place it could be. Outside the chamber, General Martinez was already fielding requests from half a dozen species for detailed technical briefings on human military equipment standards. The mockery phase was over. The respect phase was about to begin. 3 months after the demonstration on Station Kepler, Lieutenant Marcus Webb crouched behind a makeshift barricade on the mining world of Zirian Prime, listening to plasma bolts sizzle through the toxic atmosphere above his head. His Mark 7 armor registered 17 different environmental hazards in the immediate area, from radioactive dust to corrosive gas pockets that would dissolve most materials in seconds. The Void Swarm had arrived without warning, as they always did. Black ships materializing from interdimensional rifts, disgorging creatures that seemed designed by some malevolent intelligence to counter every known military doctrine. The galactic response had been swift and confident. 3 full battle fleets with combined arms from 7 different species, representing the finest military technology the known galaxy had to offer. They had lasted exactly 14 hours before calling for evacuation. Lieutenant Webb's comm system crackled with transmissions from the retreating galactic forces. Zephyrian crystal ships dissolved under acid attacks that penetrated their molecular barriers. Hegemony assault troopers fell to bioweapons that turned their enhanced physiology against them. Even the ethereal collective's energy-form warriors found themselves disrupted by some form of dimensional interference that scattered their consciousness across multiple planes of existence. All Terran forces, this is Admiral Thorne on the TFS Endurance, came the transmission from orbit. Current situation is a general retreat of all galactic forces. Zirian Prime is being abandoned to swarm occupation. Prepare for emergency extraction. Webb glanced around at his squad. Sergeant Rodriguez was methodically checking her heavy plasma cannon while monitoring atmospheric toxicity levels. Corporal Kim was using his armor's sensor package to track swarm movements through the underground mining tunnels. Private Jackson was treating a wounded Zephyrian officer whose crystalline structure had been partially dissolved by swarm bioacid. "Sir," Sergeant Rodriguez said through the squad comm, "the wounded include representatives from 4 different species. Most of their equipment has been compromised by environmental factors." "How many can we carry?" Webb asked, knowing the answer would complicate their extraction. "With current gear loadouts and armor enhancement capacity, all of them, sir. The Mark 7 strength amplification can handle the additional mass." Through the barricade, Webb could see the retreating galactic forces. Hegemony soldiers stumbled through the toxic mist without proper atmospheric protection. Their standard armor never designed for the chemical warfare environment that the swarm creatures naturally generated. A group of mechanical hegemony androids had simply shut down when their systems couldn't adapt to the electromagnetic interference that seemed to follow the swarm like a storm cloud. A new voice cut through the comm static. Ambassador Keth Tar, whose earlier skepticism about human armor had turned to desperate hope. Human forces, this is Ambassador Keth Tar requesting immediate assistance. My escort detail has been incapacitated by atmospheric toxicity. Standard Zephyrian filtration systems cannot process the chemical combinations present in this environment. Webb made the tactical decision that would define the next phase of human-galactic relations. All Terran squads switched to rescue operations. Priority is wounded galactic personnel. Authorization Webb 77. Sir, Corporal Kim questioned. Orders from Admiral Thorne are to prepare for extraction. Orders from Admiral Thorne are to prepare for extraction, Webb agreed. He didn't specify who we're extracting. The lieutenant activated his external speakers and switched to the general emergency frequency. All galactic forces in need of assistance. This is Lieutenant Webb of the Terran 3rd Marines. We are beginning immediate casualty evacuation. Move to coordinates. I'm transmitting now. What followed would later be studied in military academies across a dozen star systems as a textbook example of adaptive doctrine under extreme conditions. Human forces, designed for independent operation, transformed from retreat participants to rescue coordinators in minutes. Sergeant Rodriguez's squad reached Ambassador Keth Tar's position just as his ceremonial escort guards collapsed from respiratory failure. The crystalline beings simply could not process the complex chemical warfare environment that the swarm had created across the mining colony's atmosphere. Ambassador, we need to move you to cleaner air, Rodriguez said, her armor automatically adjusting to interface with Zephyrian physiology. The Mark VII's medical systems have been programmed with biological data from every known galactic species, anticipating exactly this type of multi-species rescue scenario. My people cannot survive in this environment, Keth Tar managed, his crystalline structure already showing stress fractures from chemical exposure. Our breathing apparatus was not designed for hostile atmosphere operations. Rodriguez was already activating one of her armor's more remarkable features. The Mark 7 included a deployable emergency shelter system, basically a small building that could be assembled in minutes and provide life support for multiple species simultaneously. Within 8 minutes, she had established a safe zone that filtered the toxic atmosphere and provided medical support for 17 different biological types. How is this possible? Keth Tar asked as his breathing normalized in the filtered environment. Your portable equipment rivals our permanent atmospheric processing stations. Human colonies are often established in hostile environments, Rodriguez explained while her medical systems diagnosed and treated chemical exposure in 6 different aliens. We learned to make every piece of equipment serve multiple emergency functions. Meanwhile, Corporal Kim was leading a rescue operation in the underground mining tunnels where a mixed unit of hegemony and Trade Federation forces had become trapped. The swarm creatures had flooded the tunnel system with a bioelectric field that interfered with most technological systems. Standard galactic military equipment had simply failed, leaving soldiers stranded in increasingly unstable excavation sites. This is Corporal Kim calling any survivors in Tunnel Complex Delta. Respond if you can hear this transmission. A weak signal came back. Federation forces trapped at level 7. Major structural collapse. Standard equipment non-functional. Request immediate assistance. Kim checked his armor's structural analysis system. The tunnels were indeed collapsing, but not from swarm attack. The bioelectric interference was disrupting the automated mining systems that normally maintain tunnel stability. It was a cascading failure that threatened to bury hundreds of galactic soldiers. Private Jackson prepped the emergency construction kit. We're going mining. The Mark 7 armor included industrial-grade construction tools that could function as emergency mining equipment. More importantly, human armor was designed with hardened electronics that maintained function in extreme electromagnetic environments. Within an hour, Kim's squad had carved new tunnel systems to reach the trapped soldiers and established temporary structural supports that could maintain stability despite ongoing electronic warfare. General Vexoth, the scarred hegemony veteran who had questioned human armor design months earlier, found himself being carried to safety by a human soldier whose armor was simultaneously digging through collapsed rock, filtering toxic air, providing medical treatment, and maintaining communications across multiple species' frequency ranges. "How long can your equipment sustain this level of operation?" he asked Private Jackson, who was using armor-mounted tools to cut through a metal beam that had trapped 3 Trade Federation merchants. "Standard operation time is 72 hours continuous, sir," Jackson replied while his armor's medical systems treated radiation poisoning in a Concordat officer. Though current power consumption is running a little high due to the construction work. Vexoth tried to process this information. The human was operating heavy construction equipment, battlefield medical systems, communications arrays, and life support for multiple species simultaneously, and considered this running a little high on power consumption. "What is normal power consumption for your armor systems?" "Normal field operations barely register on the power grid, sir. Most of our energy goes to movement amplification and environmental protection. The Mark 7 is designed to run for months in standby mode." Above ground, Lieutenant Webb was coordinating the evacuation of nearly 300 galactic personnel using a squad of 12 human soldiers. His armor's command and control systems were processing logistics data for 7 different species simultaneously, tracking biological needs, medical requirements, equipment compatibility, and transportation capacity in real time. The evacuation shuttles arrived to find human forces had not only successfully extracted all galactic personnel, but had established a temporary base camp with medical facilities, communications networks, and defensive perimeters that were still functioning despite ongoing swarm attacks. Admiral Thorne's voice came over the comm with barely concealed amazement. "Lieutenant Webb, report status of evacuation operations." "Sir, all galactic personnel have been successfully extracted. We have established a secure perimeter and are maintaining defensive positions. Medical facilities are operational for treatment of chemical exposure, radiation poisoning, and combat injuries across multiple species. No human casualties reported." A long pause followed. Then Admiral Thorne asked, "Lieutenant, are you reporting that your squad of 12 soldiers successfully evacuated 300 galactic personnel from an active combat zone while establishing a field base?" "Yes, sir." "Those Sergeant Rodriguez requests additional medical supplies for long-term care of some of the more severely affected Zephyrian personnel." From the shuttle, Ambassador Kethtar watched human soldiers moving with mechanical precision around the temporary base camp. Each armored figure seemed to be performing the work of an entire specialist team. One soldier was simultaneously operating advanced medical equipment, maintaining communication systems, and conducting defensive patrols. "Dr. Yila," he called to the Concordat representative, "are you recording this operational display?" The winged scientist was indeed recording, her multiple sensors working frantically to catalog what they were witnessing. The efficiency ratios are unprecedented. Individual human soldiers are performing specialist functions that would normally require dedicated teams. General Vexoff, still being treated for chemical exposure, managed a weak laugh. 3 months ago, I mocked their armor as primitive excess. Today, that primitive excess saved my life and the lives of my entire command staff. Dr. Yila's sensors focused on the nearest human soldier, who was using armor-mounted equipment to perform complex chemical analysis of the contaminated atmosphere while simultaneously treating radiation poisoning in a Trade Federation merchant. The integration of systems is remarkable. Medical, engineering, communications, defensive systems all functioning in perfect coordination. It's not just integration, Kethtar observed. His crystalline features shifted to deep blue contemplation. It's anticipation. This armor was designed by beings who expected to encounter exactly these conditions. Ambassador Mordek, his carapace still damaged from acid exposure, clicked nervously as he watched human soldiers efficiently organizing supplies that would support mixed-species operations for weeks if necessary. How did they know to prepare for multi-species rescue operations in chemical warfare environments? The question hung unanswered, but the implications were clear. Humanity had not just prepared for their own survival. They had prepared to rescue everyone else. As the evacuation shuttles loaded the last of the galactic personnel, Lieutenant Webb conducted a final perimeter check. The swarm creatures were still active in the area, but they seemed unable or unwilling to approach the temporary base the humans had established. His armor sensors indicated the defensive systems were operating at only 30% capacity, maintaining protective barriers that discouraged swarm investigation. "Sir," Sergeant Rodriguez reported, "all galactic personnel have been successfully evacuated. Base systems are secure and can be maintained remotely if necessary." Webb nodded, taking a last look at the mining colony that had become the site of humanity's first real demonstration of military capability. The retreating galactic forces had fled in hours from conditions that human equipment was designed to handle as routine operational parameters. "Pack it up, Marines. Time to head home." As the human shuttles lifted off from Zirian Prime, they left behind a fully functional base camp that continued operating autonomously, ready to support any future operations that might require return to the hostile world. In the passenger compartment of the evacuation shuttle, the surviving galactic commanders sat in contemplative silence. The easy assumption that human armor was excessive had been replaced by a troubling recognition. Human armor wasn't excessive for the threats they normally faced, which raised an uncomfortable question about what humanity considered normal threats. Ambassador Kethtar looked around at his fellow survivors, veteran commanders from 7 different species, all of whom had been helpless against conditions that 12 human soldiers had treated as routine field exercises. "I believe," he said quietly, "we need to reconsider our evaluation of human military capabilities." General Vexoff, wrapped in a human-provided medical support system that was simultaneously healing his injuries and teaching him how to operate similar equipment, nodded grimly. "More than that, we need to reconsider our understanding of warfare itself." Through the shuttle's viewports, they could see the TFS Endurance maintaining orbit over Zirian Prime. A single human warship holding position where 3 full galactic battle fleets had been forced to retreat. The real demonstration was just beginning. The emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council convened 6 days after the Zirian Prime incident, with representatives still showing visible signs of their recent ordeal. Ambassador Kethtar's crystalline structure bore new facets where chemical damage had been repaired, while General Vexoff moved carefully due to ongoing treatment for radiation exposure. The assembly hall, normally filled with the confident chatter of species who had dominated galactic politics for millennia, was unusually subdued. Admiral Elena Vasquez, commander of the Terran fleet, sat at what had previously been designated as the junior member position at the council table. The irony was not lost on anyone present. The species they had condescended to 3 months earlier now occupied the only military command that had successfully engaged the Void Swarm and achieved operational objectives. High Counselor Threlin A.K. of the Celestial Concordat called the session to order with a tone that carried centuries of diplomatic authority. This emergency assembly addresses the recent military actions at Zirian Prime and their implications for our collective defense posture. He gestured toward Admiral Vasquez with one of his elongated appendages. Admiral, please provide your operational assessment of the Zirian engagement. Elena stood, her dress uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garb worn by other council members. Human military aesthetics favored function over decoration, another detail that had previously been interpreted as primitive simplicity. Honored counselors, the Zirian Prime engagement revealed significant gaps in current galactic defense doctrine. The Void Swarm employed biological and chemical warfare methods that neutralized standard galactic equipment within hours of initial contact. Ambassador Mordex Carapace clicked with barely contained agitation. Admiral, 3 full battle fleets representing 7 civilizations were forced to retreat. Are you suggesting our combined military experience, spanning millennia, is inadequate? Elena's expression remained diplomatically neutral. I'm suggesting that your military experience prepared you for conflicts with known galactic powers using familiar technologies. The Void Swarm represents something different. Dr. Yila leaned forward, her gossamer wings shimmering with curiosity. Our analysis indicates the swarm creatures generate multiple forms of warfare simultaneously: biological, chemical, electromagnetic, and dimensional interference. No single species has encountered such comprehensive threat profiles. Which brings us to the central question. High Counselor Threlin K. interjected. How do human forces operate effectively in conditions that defeated our combined fleets? Admiral Vasquez activated a holographic display showing technical specifications for the Mark 7 armor system. The assembled delegates had seen this information before, but their perspective had changed dramatically since Zirian Prime. Human military doctrine is based on worst-case scenario planning, Elena explained. Our equipment is designed to function in environments where multiple threat types operate simultaneously, because that describes normal conditions on our homeworld. She highlighted various armor subsystems as she spoke. Biological warfare protection is standard because Earth has organisms that generate lethal toxins as routine metabolic byproducts. Chemical warfare systems are integrated because our atmosphere regularly contains corrosive compounds during certain weather patterns. Electromagnetic shielding is mandatory because our planet generates natural electromagnetic disturbances that would disable most galactic equipment. General Vexoth shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Admiral, are you claiming that Earth's natural environment routinely generates conditions equivalent to active warfare scenarios? I'm stating it as verifiable fact, Elena replied matter-of-factly. Our training facilities simulate what we call hostile environment operations, which would be considered extreme warfare conditions by galactic standards. For humans, it's Tuesday. Ambassador Kethtar's crystalline features shifted to deep blue as he processed this information. The implications are disturbing. If human standard equipment is designed for environments that defeat our military forces, What does that suggest about the nature of human civilization? Elena touched a control, and the holographic display shifted to show statistical data. Earth's surface experiences approximately 400 different types of natural disasters that would qualify as extinction-level events for most galactic species. Our civilization developed because we learned to treat hostile conditions as normal operational parameters. The council chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed these numbers. Dr. Yila's sensors worked frantically to verify the statistical claims, while other representatives struggled to comprehend the implications. 400 types of extinction events? High Counselor Threlenike asked quietly. That we've cataloged so far, Elena confirmed. The list grows as we explore more of our planet's oceanic and subterranean regions. Most human settlements are located in areas that would be considered uninhabitable by galactic colonization standards. She highlighted population distribution maps showing major human cities. New York is built on an island surrounded by waters that regularly freeze solid while maintaining industrial operations. London operates in an atmospheric environment that would dissolve most galactic building materials within months. Tokyo sits on top of active geological instabilities that generate frequent seismic events. General Vexoff leaned forward, his scarred hands clasped tightly. Your major population centers are deliberately located in disaster zones? Not deliberately, Elena corrected. We just define disaster differently than you do. A Category 5 hurricane is a weather inconvenience that delays outdoor activities for a day or two. A volcanic eruption is a geological event that requires temporary evacuation procedures. What you call disasters, we call weather. Ambassador Mordek's clicking had reached a rapid staccato rhythm indicating extreme agitation among his species. Admiral, this council represents civilizations with combined military experience spanning 3 million years. Are you suggesting that humanity has faced more challenging operational environments than our combined galactic experience? Elena considered the question seriously. I'm suggesting that humanity has faced different challenges. Your species developed in stable environments with predictable threat patterns, so you optimize for efficiency and elegance. We developed in an environment where everything was actively trying to kill us, so we optimize for survival. Dr. Yila interjected with data flowing across her sensor displays. Admiral, our analysis of human equipment reveals integration levels that approach theoretical maximums for multi-system engineering. How do you manufacture devices with such complexity? We don't manufacture them, Elena replied. We grow them. The statement sent ripples of confusion through the assembly. Manufacturing was manufacturing. Materials were processed and assembled according to specifications. The concept of growing advanced military equipment was unknown to galactic science. Human industrial processes are based on biological principles, Elena explained. We learn to work with living systems rather than against them. The Mark 7 armor is partially alive, a symbiotic organism that adapts to threats in real time. High Counselor Threlanake's elongated features expressed the deep concern that was spreading throughout the chamber. Admiral, are you informing this council that human military equipment includes living organisms? I'm informing this council that the distinction between living and non-living isn't particularly meaningful in human technology, Elena clarified. Our equipment evolves to meet new threats because it was designed by organisms that have been evolving to meet new threats for billions of years. The implications hung heavy in the chamber. Every galactic species had developed technology by imposing their will on non-living materials, creating tools that performed specific functions according to predetermined specifications. Humanity had apparently developed technology by partnering with living systems that could adapt and evolve. Ambassador Kethtar voiced the question that everyone present was thinking. Admiral, what happens when your equipment encounters threats that require evolution beyond current parameters? Elena's expression grew thoughtful. That's actually an interesting question. We've never encountered a threat environment that exceeded our equipment's adaptive capacity. She paused, then added, though our scientists are always eager to test new scenarios. General Vexoth felt a chill run through his veteran combat instincts. Admiral, are you implying that humanity would welcome the opportunity to face even more extreme threats? I'm stating that human military doctrine assumes threat escalation is inevitable, Elena replied. We don't prepare for the worst-case scenario we can imagine. We prepare for the worst-case scenario we haven't imagined yet. Dr. Yila's wings fluttered with what her species expressed as profound confusion. But such preparation would require infinite resources and unlimited technological development. No species could sustain such an approach. Elena smiled for the first time during the session. Dr. Yila, you're thinking like an optimization specialist. Humans think like survivors. We don't try to achieve perfect efficiency. We try to achieve perfect redundancy. She highlighted new displays showing human industrial capacity. Every human world maintains manufacturing capability for complete military equipment replacement. Every human city can function as a fortress. Every human citizen receives basic training in hostile environment survival and combat operations. The numbers scrolling across the displays shocked the assembled delegates. Human civilization wasn't organized around efficiency and specialization like every other galactic power. It was organized around the assumption that any component of their civilization might need to fight for survival at any moment. Your entire species is militarized. High Counselor Threlin AK asked with growing alarm. Our entire species is prepared, Elena corrected. There's a difference between aggressive militarization and defensive preparation. We don't seek conflict, but we assume conflict will find us. Ambassador Mordek had stopped clicking entirely, a sign of deep shock among his people. Admiral, such preparation levels suggest expectations of existential threat. Elena nodded gravely. Ambassador, we've already faced multiple existential threats. Ice ages that covered most of our continents in glaciers for millennia. Supervolcanic eruptions that blocked out our sun for years at a time. Asteroid impacts that sterilized significant portions of our biosphere. She paused to let these facts register among the council members. Every human alive today is descended from organisms that survived multiple extinction events. We carry the genetic memory of species-ending catastrophes, and we prepare accordingly. The chamber erupted in multilingual discussions as delegates struggled to process this information. The species they had invited to join galactic civilization as a minor member were descendants of survivors from multiple extinction-level events. Dr. Yila's sensors detected elevated stress indicators among council members as the implications became clear. Admiral, you're describing a species with survival characteristics that exceed any known parameters. How do we integrate such preparation levels with existing galactic defense doctrine? Elena considered the question carefully. Dr. Yila, I think the question is whether existing galactic defense doctrine can be integrated with human preparation levels. General Vexoth understood immediately. The SCAR veteran had recognized the shift in military dynamics that was occurring in real time. You're not asking to join our defense structure. You're offering to replace it. We're offering to supplement it, Elena clarified diplomatically. Human forces are designed to operate in conditions where conventional military doctrine fails. We can function as emergency response specialists for scenarios that exceed standard galactic combat parameters. High Counselor Threllan K leaned back in his ceremonial chair, his ancient features reflecting the weight of a decision that would reshape galactic civilization. The Council had convened to address a military incident. Instead, they were confronting evidence that their understanding of warfare, preparation, and survival had been fundamentally inadequate. "Admiral," he said slowly, "what would human integration with galactic defense forces actually entail?" Elena activated new displays showing proposed operational structures. Human forces would serve as heavy assault specialists for extreme environment operations. We would handle situations that require extended independent operation in hostile conditions. Essentially, we would take responsibility for the scenarios that current galactic forces cannot address. The displays showed integration proposals that were remarkable for their modesty. Despite demonstrating military capabilities that exceeded the combined galactic fleets, humanity was proposing to serve as specialized support forces rather than replacement commanders. Ambassador Kethtar's crystalline features shifted to a new color pattern, deep respect mixed with cautious hope. "Admiral, humanity could demand primary command authority based on demonstrated capability. Why are you proposing a support role?" Elena's answer would be remembered in diplomatic archives for centuries to come. "Ambassador, humans learned long ago that the strongest member of a group doesn't need to be the leader. Sometimes the strongest member serves best by making sure everyone else survives." The session concluded 3 hours later with unanimous approval for expanded human integration into galactic defense forces. But every delegate understood that they weren't just approving a military restructuring. They were acknowledging that the balance of power in the galaxy had fundamentally shifted to a species that measured success not by territory conquered or enemies defeated, but by allies protected and crises survived. The age of human preparedness had officially begun. The Deep Space Monitoring Station detected them first. Energy signatures that didn't match any known technology appearing at the edge of the galaxy's spiral arm. Within hours, what had started as mysterious readings became a terrifying reality. The Harbinger fleet, an armada of vessels so massive that individual ships registered as small moons on gravitational sensors. Captain Maria Santos stood in the command center of the Deep Space Fortress Avalon, watching tactical displays that showed an approaching force beyond anything in galactic military experience. The Harbinger ships moved through space like living things, their hulls rippling with organic patterns that suggested technology evolved rather than manufactured. "Captain," her communications officer reported, voice tight with stress, "we're receiving transmissions from the approaching fleet." The main display activated, showing forms that hurt to look at directly. Geometric shapes that folded through dimensions human eyes weren't designed to process, accompanied by sounds that bypassed hearing to resonate directly in bone and brain tissue. Lesser forms, the transmission declared in a voice like crushing planets. "Your galactic civilization has drawn our attention. We come to evaluate your worthiness to continue existing." The message continued with details that made the void swarm seem like a minor pest problem. The Harbingers were an ancient civilization that periodically scoured galaxies clean of life they deemed inadequate. Their technology operated on principles that treated physics more as suggestions than laws, and their approach to warfare involved rewriting the fundamental constants of reality in localized areas. Captain Santos activated her priority communications array. "All Galactic Defense Council members, this is Captain Santos at Deep Space Station Avalon. We have a situation that exceeds all current threat assessment parameters. The response came within minutes. Panic transmissions from civilizations that had monitored the same signals. The Celestial Concordat reported that their energy form warriors simply dissipated when exposed to Harbinger technology. The mechanical hegemony's androids shut down permanently when their logic systems encounter Harbinger physics. Even the Zephyrians' crystal-based technology shattered from harmonic frequencies generated by the approaching fleet. Admiral Vasquez arrived at Avalon aboard the TFS Endurance just as the Harbinger fleet reached the outer system. Her first action was to review the tactical situation with her characteristic methodical precision. "Captain, what's our assessment of enemy capabilities?" Santos pulled up sensor readings that pushed human measurement systems to their limits. "Admiral, preliminary scans indicate the Harbinger ships are generating localized alterations in space-time. They're not moving through space. They're redefining what space means around them." She highlighted specific readings that made experienced military officers pale. Gravitational fields that shouldn't be possible, energy signatures that exceed our theoretical maximums, and electromagnetic patterns that seem to operate in more dimensions than we can measure. Admiral Vasquez studied the data with the calm focus that had made her legendary among human military commanders. Recommendations? Admiral, standard galactic defense doctrine has no protocols for this scenario. The Harbingers aren't using technology we can counter with existing systems. Elena nodded dojehashfully. Captain, standard galactic defense doctrine was never designed for scenarios where the enemy can rewrite physics. What about human defense doctrine? Santos paused, then activated new displays showing alternative tactical approaches. Human doctrine suggests we stop thinking about this as a conventional military engagement. If they can rewrite physics locally, we need to consider unconventional countermeasures. Explain. Captain Santos had served with human forces long enough to understand how their species approached impossible problems. Instead of trying to match superior enemy technology, they looked for ways to make superior technology irrelevant. Admiral, the Harbingers are treating this as a technological conflict. They're demonstrating superior capabilities and expecting us to recognize our inferiority. That's a galactic approach to warfare. Show strength, demand submission. And the human approach? Don't play by their rules, Santos replied with growing confidence. If they want to demonstrate technological superiority, we demonstrate survival superiority. We show them that humans don't surrender based on impressive technology displays. Admiral Vasquez smiled grimly. Captain, you're suggesting we treat a civilization that can manipulate fundamental physics like any other environmental hazard. Yes, ma'am. Our armor is designed to protect against threats we don't understand using principles we can't control. From our perspective, physics-manipulating aliens are just another hostile environment. The Harbinger fleet settled into orbit around the system's primary star, their ships arranging themselves in patterns that created visible distortions in local space. Long-range sensors detected massive energy buildups that suggested preparation for some form of demonstration. Admiral Vasquez opened communications to the entire human fleet. All Terran vessels, this is Admiral Vasquez. We are facing an enemy that operates beyond conventional physics, but that doesn't change our mission parameters. Human forces will demonstrate that survival capability exceeds technological sophistication. She paused, then added, remember, we come from a world where impossible things try to kill us every day. This is just Tuesday with different scenery. The Harbinger demonstration began 12 hours later. Their lead vessel, a structure that existed in 6 dimensions simultaneously, generated a localized field that began converting matter to energy in precise geometric patterns. Asteroids simply ceased to exist as their atomic structure was rewritten into pure light. Then the transmission came. Observe our capabilities, lesser forms. Your matter is temporary. Your energy is borrowed. Your existence is conditional. The display continued as Harbinger vessels demonstrated their ability to manipulate gravity, time, and the fundamental forces that held matter together. It was the most impressive show of technological supremacy in galactic history. Admiral Vasquez watched from the bridge of the Endurance as space itself became a weapon in alien hands. Then, she opened a communication channel to the Harbinger fleet. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Force. We acknowledge your technological demonstrations. However, we decline your implied demand for submission. The response came immediately, carrying undertones of surprise and annoyance. Lesser form, you have observed our power. Your continued resistance is irrational. Actually, Elena replied calmly, our continued resistance is inevitable. You see, humans don't base survival decisions on technological assessments. We base them on principle. She activated tactical displays showing human fleet positions. You've demonstrated that you can rewrite local physics. That's impressive technology. But technology doesn't determine outcomes, survival instincts do. The Harbinger response carried new harmonics that suggested confusion. Explain your meaning, lesser form. I'll demonstrate, Elena said, then issued orders that would be studied in military academies for generations to come. All Terran forces implement Protocol Omega. Full defensive operations in hostile physics environment. What followed redefined galactic understanding of military doctrine. Human ships didn't try to match Harbinger technology or counter their physics manipulation. Instead, they treated the altered physics as environmental hazards and adapted accordingly. The Mark VII armor that had impressed galactic delegates months earlier revealed new capabilities when faced with impossible threats. Soldiers operated normally in zones where gravity fluctuated randomly, where time moved at variable speeds, and where matter occasionally forgot how to maintain coherent atomic structure. How are your forces functioning in our altered reality? The Harbingers demanded as human operations continued despite physics that should have made movement impossible. We're not functioning in your altered reality, Captain Santos explained as she led a boarding operation through a spatial distortion that existed in negative dimensions. We're functioning in hostile environmental conditions. This is what our equipment was designed for. The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment when galactic civilization learned that humans didn't fight fair. While Harbinger vessels used advanced technology to rewrite fundamental laws, human forces used advanced preparation to ignore fundamental laws. Human ships operated normally in areas where space was folded inside out. Human soldiers conducted ground operations on surfaces that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Human equipment functioned reliably in environments where cause and effect operated backwards. This is impossible. The Harbinger Fleet commander transmitted as human forces systematically disabled alien vessels using tactics that worked regardless of local physics. Your technology cannot function in our altered reality matrix. Admiral Vasquez, personally leading an assault team through a region where up and down changed randomly every few seconds, provided the answer that would echo through galactic history. Our technology isn't designed to function in normal physics. It's designed to function when normal physics stop working. The engagement lasted 18 hours. At its conclusion, the Harbinger fleet hung motionless in space, their reality-altering technology systematically countered by human forces that simply refused to acknowledge that reality had limitations. The final Harbinger transmission carried harmonics that their species had never produced before, something approaching respect, mixed with profound confusion. Your species operates outside logical parameters. How do you achieve functional outcomes when fundamental constants are variable? Elena's response would be quoted in diplomatic archives for millennia. We achieve functional outcomes by refusing to accept that anything is impossible. On our world, impossible things happen every day. We learn to treat them as routine operational challenges. She paused, then added, "Your technology can rewrite physics. Our experience includes dealing with physics that rewrite themselves. The difference is that you consider this unusual, while we consider it Tuesday." The Harbinger fleet departed 12 hours later, their final transmission carrying a message that shocked galactic civilization. Your species demonstrates survival characteristics that exceed technological parameters. We acknowledge your right to continued existence. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Harbingers had encountered a species that simply refused to be impressed by superior technology. As the alien fleet disappeared into whatever dimensions they called home, Admiral Vasquez conducted post-operation briefings with her command staff. The battle analysis would revolutionize galactic military doctrine, but for human forces, it had been routine hostile environment operations. "Admiral," Captain Santos asked during the debrief, "how did you know the armor systems would function in altered physics?" Elena's answer revealed the core philosophy that had made humanity's integration with galactic civilization so successful. "Captain, I didn't know our systems would work, but I knew that our systems were designed by people who prepared for everything, including things they couldn't imagine." She gestured toward the tactical displays showing human equipment performance during the engagement. The Mark 7 armor wasn't specifically designed to function in impossible physics. It was designed to function when reality stops making sense. The designers just didn't know they were designing for impossible physics when they built it. The implications rippled through galactic civilization as news of the Harbinger engagement spread. Humanity hadn't defeated the aliens through superior technology or clever tactics. They had simply refused to accept that the engagement was unwinnable. More importantly, they had treated a civilization capable of rewriting fundamental physics as just another environmental hazard to be managed with proper preparation. Ambassador Kethtar, observing the post-battle analysis from the safety of his diplomatic vessel, sent a message to the Galactic Defense Council that would reshape interstellar politics. "Fellow counselors, we have been approaching human integration incorrectly. We have been trying to understand how their technology works. We should have been trying to understand how their thinking works." The Harbinger engagement had proved that humans didn't succeed because their equipment was superior. They succeeded because they prepared for survival in circumstances where superiority was irrelevant. As the human fleet returned to normal operations, Admiral Vasquez reflected on a truth that would define humanity's role in galactic civilization. The most dangerous species in the universe wasn't necessarily the strongest or the smartest. Sometimes it was just the one that refused to give up. 1 year after the Harbinger engagement, the Galactic Defense Council convened in the newly constructed Terran Command Complex on Luna Station. The meeting hall itself reflected how dramatically perspectives had changed. Designed with human input, it featured redundant life support systems, emergency shelters that could function independently for months, and defensive capabilities that could repel invasion forces while maintaining diplomatic operations. Ambassador Kethtar, now serving as the Council's first speaker, called the assembly to order with crystalline features that had permanently shifted to deep blue, a sign of profound respect among his people. The agenda focused on a single item: formal restructuring of galactic civilization's defensive doctrine based on what the diplomatic archives now called the human model. Fellow representatives, Kethtar began, we convene today not to address a crisis, but to acknowledge that our understanding of crisis itself has fundamentally changed. He gestured toward Admiral Vasquez, who now held the position of Supreme Military Coordinator, a rank created specifically to acknowledge that human military doctrine had become the galaxy's primary defensive strategy. Admiral, please present the integration assessment. Elena rose, her bearing carrying the quiet confidence that had made her legendary among both human and alien forces. Behind her, holographic displays showed statistics that would have seemed impossible 2 years earlier. Honored delegates, comprehensive integration of human defensive doctrine with existing galactic military structures has exceeded all projected outcomes. She highlighted specific data points as she spoke. Casualty rates across all galactic forces have decreased by 87%. Mission success rates have increased to 94%. Most significantly, no galactic force has been forced to retreat from hostile environments since implementing human preparation protocols. Dr. Yila, whose wing form now bore augmentations based on human armor technology, leaned forward with visible excitement. Admiral, these improvements represent the most dramatic advancement in galactic military capability in recorded history. What specific elements of human doctrine produce such results? Elena activated new displays showing comparative analysis of military approaches. Dr. Yila, the improvements stem from a fundamental shift in operational philosophy. Previous galactic doctrine optimized for efficiency against known threats. Human doctrine optimizes for survival against unknown threats. She highlighted specific examples from recent operations. Zephyrian crystal ships now carry human-designed redundant systems that function when their primary technology fails. Hegemony assault forces wear hybrid armor that combines their enhancement capabilities with human environmental protection. Even ethereal collective energy warriors have adopted backup protocols for consciousness preservation during dimensional interference. General Vexoth, whose scarred features now carried human-manufactured cybernetic enhancements that had saved his life during the Harbinger engagement, spoke with the authority of a veteran who had witnessed revolutionary change. Admiral, the transformation extends beyond equipment modifications. Human tactical doctrine has changed how we conceptualize warfare itself. Elena nodded acknowledgement. General Vexoth raises an important point. The most significant change isn't technological, it's psychological. Galactic forces now prepare for scenarios they hope will never occur, rather than preparing for scenarios they expect to encounter. Ambassador Mordek, his carapace reinforced with human-developed adaptive plating, clicked in what had become a gesture of agreement rather than agitation. Admiral, this shift in preparation philosophy has produced unexpected benefits beyond military applications. Our civilian populations report increased confidence and reduced anxiety about potential threats. Elena smiled at this observation. Ambassador, you've identified something humans learned millennia ago. When you prepare for the worst possible scenario, normal challenges become manageable. When you know you can survive extinction-level events, everyday problems don't generate stress. The transformation went far beyond military doctrine. Human approaches to engineering, medicine, agriculture, and even social organization had spread throughout galactic civilization. The results were so positive that some species had begun voluntary adaptation of human biological characteristics to better integrate with Terran survival philosophy. High Counselor Threlin A.K., his ancient features bearing subtle modifications that enhance resistance to environmental hazards addressed a concern that had emerged during the integration process. Admiral, some member species have expressed concern about the intensity of human preparation methods. There are reports that human-trained forces now consider scenarios that border on paranoid speculation. Elena's expression grew thoughtful. High Counselor, humans have learned that the difference between paranoid speculation and reasonable preparation is usually about 6 months of hindsight. She activated displays showing recent threat assessments conducted by integrated galactic forces. Human-trained analysts have identified 14 potential extinction scenarios that previous galactic doctrine would have classified as impossible. 8 of those scenarios have already shown preliminary indicators in deep space monitoring. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed this information. The humans weren't just preparing for known threats. They were identifying unknown threats and preparing for those as well. Dr. Yila's sensors detected elevated concern among council members. Admiral, are you suggesting that galactic civilization faces multiple unknown extinction-level threats? I'm suggesting that galactic civilization has always faced multiple unknown extinction-level threats, Elena corrected. The difference is that now we're aware of them and preparing accordingly. She highlighted specific monitoring data from deep space observation posts. Since implementing human analysis protocols, we've detected signs of dimensional instability in 3 sectors: gravitational anomalies that suggest massive dark matter concentrations in 6 systems, and energy signatures that indicate at least 2 more civilizations with Harbinger-level technology operating in nearby galaxies. The implications were staggering. Before human integration, galactic civilization had operated under the assumption that they understood the major threats in their region of space. Human analysis revealed that they had been living in what amounted to a cosmic shooting gallery, while remaining completely unaware of the dangers. Ambassador Keth Tar's crystalline features shifted through several color patterns as he processed the threat assessment data. Admiral, this information suggests that galactic civilization has survived by accident rather than design. More accurately, Elena replied, galactic civilization has survived because the universe hadn't gotten around to testing your defenses yet. Humans learned early that survival is not about avoiding tests. It's about being ready when the tests arrive. General Vexoth leaned forward, his enhanced cybernetic systems processing tactical implications faster than organic cognition could manage. Admiral, given these threat assessments, what does human doctrine recommend for long-term galactic defense strategy? Elena's answer would reshape interstellar civilization for the next 1,000 years. General, human doctrine recommends that we stop thinking of galactic defense as protection of territory and start thinking of it as preparation for species survival. She activated new displays showing proposed defensive restructuring. Every galactic world will be prepared to function independently during extended siege conditions. Every space station will maintain manufacturing capability for complete military equipment replacement. Every citizen will receive training in hostile environment survival and basic combat operations. The proposals were breathtaking in scope. Humanity was suggesting the transformation of galactic civilization from a collection of specialized worlds connected by trade networks into a redundant survival matrix, where any component could maintain the whole if necessary. Ambassador Mordek's clicking had accelerated to excited rhythms. Admiral, such preparation levels would require resources that exceed current galactic industrial capacity. Ambassador, such preparation levels would require resources that exceed current galactic industrial efficiency, Elena corrected. Human industrial philosophy prioritizes capability over efficiency. We've found that the resources spent on excessive preparation are always less than the resources lost to inadequate preparation. Dr. Yila's wings fluttered with scientific curiosity. Admiral, could you provide specific examples of this resource efficiency analysis? Elena highlighted economic data from recent human integration projects. Dr. Yila, the cost of retrofitting every galactic vessel with human standard redundant systems was approximately 4 trillion galactic credits. The cost of replacing vessels lost to hostile environments before retrofitting was approximately 40 trillion galactic credits per year. The mathematics were unargumentable. Human preparation methods were expensive to implement, but dramatically cheaper than dealing with the consequences of inadequate preparation. High Counselor Threlin A.K. rose from his ceremonial chair with the gravity appropriate to reshaping galactic civilization. Admiral Vasquez, members of this council, we face a decision that will define the next era of galactic history. He gestured toward the assembled representatives. We can continue with traditional doctrine that optimizes for known threats and accept that unknown threats will defeat us. Or we can adopt human doctrine that prepares for unknown threats and accept that our civilization must fundamentally change to accommodate such preparation. The vote was unanimous. Every species represented in the Galactic Defense Council agreed to implement comprehensive restructuring based on human survival doctrine. But the most significant moment came when Ambassador Kethtar asked the question that everyone had been thinking. Admiral Vasquez, after observing human preparation methods for over a year, I must ask, what does humanity prepare for that we haven't discussed yet? Elena's smile carried the weight of species-level secrets that humanity had never shared with their galactic neighbors. Ambassador, humans prepare for the scenario where everything we've prepared for turns out to be inadequate. She activated final displays showing research projects that push the boundaries of known science. We're developing technology for threats that don't exist yet. We're training for combat scenarios that violate known physics. We're preparing for the possibility that preparation itself might become insufficient. The chamber erupted in multilingual discussions as delegates tried to comprehend the implications of preparing for the inadequacy of preparation itself. Dr. Yila managed to voice the question that summarized everyone's confusion. Admiral, how does one prepare for scenarios where preparation is impossible? Elena's answer revealed the core philosophy that had made humanity the guardian species of galactic civilization. Dr. Yila, you prepare by accepting that impossible scenarios are just scenarios you haven't experienced yet. Then, you make sure your people survive long enough to learn how to handle them. As the session concluded and delegates departed to begin implementing the most comprehensive military restructuring in galactic history, Admiral Vasquez remained in the chamber reviewing the transformation that had occurred over the past year. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through superior firepower or technological advancement. They had become its protectors by demonstrating that survival was not about being the strongest or the smartest. It was about being the most prepared to adapt when strength and intelligence proved inadequate. The mockery of human armor as excessive had evolved into grateful recognition that excessive preparation was the only adequate response to an excessive universe. And in the deep space monitoring stations now staffed by integrated human galactic crews, sensors continued their watch for the next impossible threat that would test whether galactic civilization had learned humanity's most important lesson. In a universe that specializes in impossible scenarios, the only reasonable response is impossible preparation. The age of human doctrine had officially transformed into the age of galactic survival. And every being in known space could rest a little easier knowing that somewhere humans were preparing for threats that didn't exist yet, just in case they decided to exist tomorrow. Because when you come from a world that has spent millions of years trying to kill everything that lives on it, you learn that the universe always has new ways to test your preparation. And humans had gotten very, very good at passing tests they'd never studied for.